Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to those who are new here. So for today's card I'm using the Hello Froggy Mama Elephant stamps and the Slim comic strip, and is it cosmic strip dies from Mama Elephant as well. And what I've done is I've used one of the little dies in there that says I love you in like a speech bubble. It's a very cute little die. And I've also die cut the main comic strip out of, I believe this is Bristol Smooth cardstock. And what I'm going to do, I've got my little images all coloured in, and I'll explain them in a bit. And what I was going to do initially was I was going to try and find a way to sort of create each of the scenes so that it looked like one big scene, but that didn't work out, so I'm just taking the tape off the back and we're actually going to do individual scenes. So I'm just popping each of these little pieces that come out of the comic strip, and the outer portion or die cut I'm going to do in some distress ink in Dusty Concord. God, words. And I really should have put this onto my sticky grid mat. Yeah, it just kind of slipped all over the place. And also because it's kind of fun, especially those pieces in the middle, those little strips of cardstock in the middle, they're kind of delicate. So note to self, stick it to the sticky grid mat, because it will just hold it in place while you're inking it, and it's so much easier. So yeah, plus you don't get your fingers in the ink quite as much. I don't mind getting inky, but it does, especially on Bristol Smooth, it can leave marks, like finger marks. So yeah. So I wanted the frame of it just to be a little bit different in colour, but it is a colour that I have within one of the images. So where I've coloured them in, I do have a sort of a pale purple. So I thought I'd use it for that. Then for the I love you speech bubble, I'm going to use some barn door for that. And again, I should have used the sticky grid. That's why we have these things. That's why we had these tools. And I'm using a smaller little blending brush. These are new to me, but they are a cheaper version. They're not the crafty ones that are out there. But these are okay. I mean, they work enough. I sometimes like to buy the sort of less expensive ones, just to try them out before I, spend a bit more on the others. So that's what I did, but they're okay. They're not bad for what I use them for. They're absolutely fine. So I just added some barn door to that die cut and left it sort of heavier at the bottom so that it kind of had this slight ombre effect. Then for the colors that I'm going to use, one for like the ground or the grassy area, I'm going to use Rustic Wilderness, and I'm going to use that on a few of these pieces. One of them is going to be completely blue because of the images that I put in there. But for this little guy, he sat on a little log, so he needs a bit of ground to sit on first, and then he will need some sky. So the skies I'm going to do in Broken China, and all of these inks are in the distress line rather than the distress ink line rather than the distress oxides. I just went for these. I find that the distress ink tends to be a bit brighter. Yes, the colours, the names of the colour and the colours themselves are the same, but the distress oxides, because of the formula, they have a more, I want to say almost like a chalky finish, or it's different. I mean, they react differently anyway when you use water and do all these fun techniques with them. So they react differently anyway, and they quote unquote oxidize, which is the whole name of the game. Name of the game? Yeah, that is right. And the whole point of them is that they give that oxidized look, but the distress inks they don't have the pigment side of it in them, so they are just pure dye ink, and they're a bit more vibrant. So depending on what I'm doing, I'll choose between the two of them. So if you've seen the Father's Day card that I've done for Dad, then you'll see that I use the oxides in that, and the oxides they've got their more muted sort of tone, but they're still great colours. Like they're the same colours, but they have, it's a different look. But I just find that the distressings are a bit more vibrant, so I decided to go for that today because I wanted something bright and fun. This actually went to my husband. He's already got it now, so when I'm editing this, but he is just going through some stuff. So I just wanted to make him a fun, happy card, and then I wrote some soppy thing in the inside of the card for him. Yes, we are soppy like that. So for each of these little blocks, if you like, they're not blocks, they're comic strip shapes, but I just kind of worked with each of the images that I wanted in each section, and then decided where I needed either the rustic wilderness or the broken china, depending on the sky or the ground, and worked with it to get the colours in there. So now I've got all these little pieces here, and I've also got my my little sentiment, an extra sentiment thing, and the frame, and I'm just going to spritz it with water because these are distressings, and if you know anything about distressings, and I hope you do, they react amazing with water. They are their own beast. Yes, there are other inks on the market that do react with water, but these are something else. These are not like the other inks out there that react with water. I'm just saying. There's nothing wrong with the other ones, but Distress is specifically formulated to do so many cool things. So if you don't know, check out Tim's YouTube channel for techniques and tips and tricks and demos and things like that. He does amazing stuff with his product, but distressings are just the best. I'm still working on getting all the distress inks. I've got all the oxides now, but I'm still working through getting my stash, because you can never have enough color, right? Says the girl who wears black all the time. But anyway, I digress. So excuse me. So in the first block, I have Hopping By to Say. This also comes from the same stamp set. And I have a little log with one of the little frogs. Look at it, it's so cute, it's so fat, I love it. And I added a little dragonfly and a snail to that one. Then the next one, you see it's all blue, and this is where the whole image is going to be water based, if that makes sense. You'll see in a second. And these images I stamped onto Bristol Smooth as well, and I used my zigs. I haven't used my zigs for so long. And I just dragged them out and started using them for these images, and then I cut them all out with my scan and cut. I don't have the dies for this. I generally don't buy dies for my stamps anymore, just because I have the scan and cut. And yes, I know you get a different look to it. It's more of a sort of a straight cut edge, as opposed to the dies will give you that slightly beveled edge. It's a big word for me, but it doesn't bother me. And to be honest, the cost of dies, sometimes I can't justify it. So so sometimes, even like with that little frog at the top with the water lily, I had to do some finagling because the stamp has these two little bubbles. And I'm going to say something that's a bit it's going to be a bit funny, but from a scan and cut point of view, I had to sort of finagle that a little bit, because you can draw like very pale pencil lines, so that the scan and cut thinks it's one image, and then it will cut around it, which is what I eventually got it to do. So a little bit of finagling, but it does work, and that's why I love the machine. It's so clever. But yeah, I think the two bubbles look like these got a bit of flatulence, shall we say. So I don't think that's the idea behind it, but that's what it just made me think of. And it also made me think of Shrek, and if you know, you know, so I'm not going to say any more. Right, so the third one has got the rest of the sentiment that says "You're frog and awesome," which I think is hysterical. I love a good pun. and it's got the main little guy on it, which again, this goes back, this is a throwback to when I was a kid, that many years ago. There's a whole song and an artist, and I think it's called the Frog Song, and if you know, you know, and that's what he reminds me of. And then in the last one I have also mostly a sort of water background, couldn't think of the word, with the other little frog, the frog queen or king, I don't know, and a couple more dragonflies. And the dragonfly, there's only one dragonfly, so he's going one way, so I just turned him upside down, and I thought, well, he's going a different direction, isn't he? So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to turn your images upside down if you need to. And then this is a note to self. There is a right and a wrong way to put these pieces back in, and I had to flip my like frame around so that I could get them in the right place. So it's just something to note when you're using dies like this, where it cuts images out. Sometimes there is actually a right and a wrong way. So before you go to stick it, just sort of pop them in place first. So what I've got now is it'll be a Slimline card, if you haven't guessed that one. And it measures, I did the measurement, I think it is 8 1/4 by 3 1/4. Is that the size? But the die will fit perfectly on this. So I think I just looked up the size it would be. So out of an A4, this is where A4 is somewhat good. It actually measures 8 1/4 across. So I did it at 8 1/4 by 7, and then scored it on the 7-inch side, scored it at 3.5, and that gave me my card base. And then the die fits perfectly on top of there. And all I'm doing is I thought about popping up the center images, and then I thought about popping up the frame, but the frame has got some really skinny bits, especially in the middle. And in the end, I decided to just stick it flat. I love dimension, but sometimes dimension and me don't get on, so it becomes more hassle when I'm trying to do a quick-ish video. Obviously, it took a bit of time to do the colouring, but that's why I did that off screen. And then you have these little individual scenes that still sort of create a whole scene, but not really. And so I just love it. It turned out so much better than I thought. I wasn't feeling particularly good, but I wanted to do something, you know, for him, and so this is what I came up with. So maybe there was it was a good thing that I did it when I wasn't feeling my best, but I seem to create something that I really, really quite love. So what I'm doing with the and I'm sorry I'm off camera here, with the speech bubble, is I stuck some foam behind the openings for the I love you, and I'm going to pop that straight down. That's the only bit that's popped up, and then I'm just going to simply pop those pieces back in there. There's enough contrast but when I die cut it and inked it for you to see the images, but you could do that in a different color. I could have put it in black or something like that, but I actually like the subtleness of it. So yeah, that's it. That's the card today. I hope you've enjoyed this. I actually enjoyed stamping and colouring again. I haven't done that for a long time because I've used, I'm all die cut, I love die cuts and stuff like that, whole die cut cards, but this was a lot of fun. So I hope you've enjoyed this, guys, and until next time, bye for now.